The summer I turned 7, the river ran like a bright thread through our village. I remember the sun as a patient, bright thing, hung above the fields where the corn whispered in its own language. Our street smelled of garlic and bread, and old rain that refused to wash away the dust. On the corner, the old clock tower kept time with a soft sigh, as if it too remembered summers when the world was larger and slower and full of small victories. I rode my rickety bicycle with a bell that rang like a friendly alarm everywhere I went, and I learned to lean into the wind as if the air itself could carry me somewhere safe. Grandmother lived at the edge of the lane, where the road curled and the hedges pressed in with green weight. She wore a shawl even on the hottest days, not for heat, but for the weather of the heart, I think. The way she adjusted it around her shoulders and listened to the world before she spoke. The kitchen would wake first with the kettle singing, a bright, startled kettle, and then the bread would come out of the oven with a crust that smelled like sunshine and a memory of butter. Those days we believed the world was made to be touched. We believed that a day could be long enough to hold the smell of rain on dust and still have room for joy, if you were quick to notice. I followed my sister and cousins to the meadow beyond the barn, where my grandfather kept a rowboat tied to a broken post, and the river wore a thin silver lip as it slipped past the willows. We learnt the river there, how to read its moods the way a woman reads a letter from a friend, by the weight of the ink in the air, by the way the birds paused on the branch before the message arrived. On one particular afternoon, the day had that soft orange hush that comes right before a story begins. It had fallen from a nest somewhere high in the old maple by the fence, and its pinfeathers glimmered like wet tea leaves in the sun. We gathered close, our voices a kind of quiet that could soothe even the stubborn heat. Grandmother stood behind us, hands folded as if already holding something precious and fragile. She did not hurry us, did not scold the bird for its fear. She spoke in a whisper that carried the weight of a prayer, telling us to be careful, to be gentle, to wash our hands first, to let the world come to us, not the other way round. We made a tiny cradle for the sparrow from a leaf and a twig, and grandmother coaxed it toward a drop of water that trembled on the tip of a blade of grass. The air smelled not only of sap and grass, but of promise, the way a soft voice grows in you when you are spared from the loudness of fear. We brought the child of a bird back from the brink with patience and calm, and when the sparrow finally settled on a branch to rest, the world suddenly seemed larger and more forgiving than it did before. It was in that moment I learned that tenderness is not weakness, but the strongest way to meet a hard thing. That afternoon, as the sparrow slept and the river kept its patient vigil, a boy from the next village stumbled into the yard. He wore his shirt too big, rolled at the sleeves, and his jeans had a patch I would not have believed could cover a hole with such stubborn resolve. He had not meant to come so near the sparrow's little hospital, and perhaps his heart wasn't ready for the quiet we were learning to hold in our hands. A rock tumbled from his pocket and dropped into the dirt with a soft, dismissive clack. He licked at us with a mixture of mischief and fear. The sparrow stirred, and the sound of a distant thunder rolled across the field, though the sky remained clear. The boy looked down at the creature, then at me, and asked if he could see the bird closer. Grandmother's eyes softened, and she gave a small nod. Nothing loud, just a breath that meant yes. The boy stepped closer, not daring to breathe too loudly, and for a moment I saw him as I sometimes wish to be seen in my old age. Not a troublemaker. Not a child playing at being grown, but a human being who longs to belong, who fears missteps and craves a small doorway into trust. In the end, we sat with the sparrow until the sun drifted toward the horizon and the air cooled. The boy's own fear melted into curiosity, and his awkwardness found a new kindness in the shared stillness. He asked questions in a voice that tried to sound braver than it felt, and grandmother answered with patient, careful words that did not remind him of yesterday's mistakes, but offered him tomorrow's chances. It was not the sparrow's recovery that mattered most to me, though I remember the tremor of its heart still beating as if with a drum, but the quiet between us, the moment when a boy who did not know how to show it learned to listen to life's smaller, quieter truths. That evening, after the kettle sang again and the bread cooled on the sill, grandmother told us to wash up and come to the porch. The air had that cool, clean scent you only get when rain is not far away, but just enough to fill the air with patience. The sky wore a crushed berry blue, and the church bells in the distance rang with a mild insistence, as if to remind even the stars to slow down and listen. We ate peaches warm from the sun, their juice dripping down our wrists, and we laughed at the silly things that children find funny. The way a cousin's hat tipped over, the way a dog turned a corner and forgot where it had wandered. It felt as if every simple thing honored a promise. We were here, we belonged to this place, and the day would hold us. In the weeks that followed, the memory anchored itself in me as the seasons turned. When I think of my younger self now, I see the same cautious tenderness in the way I speak to strangers, in the way I watch a child step timidly into a crowd, in the way I touch the sleeve of a neighbour's coat and ask, softly, how they are really doing. The world in those days taught me to ride with the wind, to listen to the river, to welcome the thunder's distant voice without flinching, to hold the fragile things as if they might vanish at any breath. I did not know then that the sparrow's courage would become a measure by which I judge my own. I did not know that the neighbour's quiet generosity would become the standard by which I judge my own words, the way I choose to offer a hand or a listening ear, rather than a quick judgment or a sharp remark. I did not know that the joy we found in that shared afternoon would become a thread in the tapestry of my life, guiding me toward the people I would eventually become, the kind of person who notices, who helps, who remembers to tell the truth not with the loudness of certainty, but with the softness of care. Now, many years later, I sit in my own kitchen and listen for the same kettle's sigh, though it is a different kettle in a different house, in a different season of a life that keeps growing quieter but never empty. The air still carries the memory of rain on dust, of bread that smells of home, of a river that seems to echo a line I once learned by heart, that a moment can hold more truth than a lifetime of noise if you hold it with your whole heart. I hear the distant laughter of cousins who have long since found their own places in the world. And I hear the soft creak of a chair that has learned my weight and my slow breaths. The sparrow's wings do not return to me, but their lesson does. That gentleness is a compass, that listening is a way to live, that every ordinary day is a chance to choose kindness again and again. Time has passed like a river that keeps a memory safe in its current, and I am grateful for that memory's stubborn sweetness. It teaches me that to grow is not to leave behind who you were, but to carry those pieces forward, a pocketful of small, bright things to pull out when the room grows too quiet or the heart grows heavy. The world changes, the faces, the streets, the pace of life. But the shape of a good moment can endure if we hold it gently enough. If we tell the truth about it with a voice that knows warmth and ache live close together. And so I carry the summer with me, not as a singular event, but as a way of being. A patience learned on a riverbank, a tenderness that saved a sparrow and then saved me, a belief that ordinary days are quietly monumental if you choose to notice them. I am learning still, in my old age, to let gratitude rise like steam from the kettle, to let longing soften into memory, to let wisdom take its slow, generous seat beside me, and remind me that the careful, steady heart is the one most capable of bearing a lifetime. I am grateful for the summer when the river threaded through our village, for the sparrow that taught me to bend toward life with care, for the neighbour who offered quiet mercy, and for grandmother whose quiet hands showed me how to hold the world without breaking it. Time moves on, yes, but meaning endures in the small rituals we keep, in the stories we tell with a patient voice, in the way a child's fear can be soothed by the simple promise that we will stay. A heart learns to remember, and in remembering it becomes brave enough to love again, to listen again, to return to the doorway of hope every morning with a gentleness that only years can give.